Welcome back to Field Trip Nation. Today we are going to continue our exploration of the Bell Museum of Natural History over in St. Paul, Minnesota. This particular exhibit that we're going to explore is the end of the last glaciation, the last ice age that happened in Minnesota, and the different animals and plants that existed in this area before the ice and the glaciers melted. During the last ice age, Minnesota was primarily covered by a large ice sheet known as the Laurentide ice sheet, and it extended into the middle of the state as well as other parts of most of North America all the way up into Alaska. This ice would have been thousands of feet thick, well over 3 kilometers thick, and it covered much of northern to mid level of Minnesota. And then they retreated, and then advanced, and then retreated, and then advanced, and then retreated. This pattern repeated over and over and over for the last 2.5 million years as the climate warmed and cooled, reshaped the landscape as it did it. Glaciers are known as nature's bulldozers, and so most of the geology was scraped down to bedrock. The last ice age reached its peak around 25,000 years ago, and about 11,000 years ago, near the end of the Pleistocene epoch, glaciers were retreating, leaving behind sandy plains, flat lake beds, and hills of rock and sediment deposited by the ice, and that sediment we call moraines. Glaciers bypass southeastern Minnesota, part of the driftless area. A drift is a glacial deposit. It retained a unique landscape of deep river valleys and steep rocky cliffs. One of the pieces of evidence that ice sheets existed is by looking at the rocks, particularly in this case, glacial striations. And striations are giant scratches in the rock when rocks scrape against other rocks. This particular rock from the Hudson Bay region of Canada has straight grooves that are called glacial striations, which show the action of glacial ice as it moved across the landscape. During an ice age, areas where there are no ice provide refuge for life. As strange as it may sound, southeastern Minnesota was one of those ice age oases. In southeastern Minnesota, it remained free of ice and drift, glacial deposits, the stuff that's scraped by the glaciers, and it remained free of this ice and drift throughout the ice age. This driftless area, as it's known, may have sheltered plants and animals when glaciers covered nearby areas. In summer, cold air flowed through the caves dotting the area's limestone cliffs. This natural air conditioning protected cold-loving plants such as Leedy's rosewood, now found only here in Minnesota, in New York's Adirondack Mountains, and in South Dakota's Black Hills. The Great Lakes in general, and Lake Superior specifically, help keep that area cool. Tremendous environmental changes at the end of the Ice Age killed off most of the region's Arctic plants. Most, but not all. Along the north shore of Lake Superior, cool and moist conditions preserved a few disconnected pockets of Arctic plants. Butterwort and knotty pearlwort may be the last survivors of Arctic species that once sprouted along the edge of the glaciers. When you're born in a specific place, you oftentimes try to puzzle out what is the nature of where you're living. In this instance, what is the nature of Minnesota? Evergreen forests, prairie grasslands, leafy woodlands, the 3 largest landscapes in North America meet right here in Minnesota. Each of these 3 natural communities, or biomes, differ in climate and vegetation. Each has unique soil and seasonal patterns of rainfall, snow, and evaporation that vary across the state. About 2,000 years ago, Minnesota's North Woods took shape as the first red pine, an iconic tree of the biome, reached the headwaters of the Mississippi River, spreading from a glacial refuge to the southeast. And yet the landscape continues to change. Can you imagine elephants living in North America? Elephants in Minnesota? Several species once lived here. Two roamed throughout Minnesota, mastadons and woolly mammoths. Mammoths had long fur coats protecting them from cold, plus a 3-inch undercoat and a thick fat layer for insulation. They may have used their massive tusks for clearing snow to reach food or for self-defense. Tusks may have also helped attract mates. Castoroides ohioensis, a giant beaver. When we're talking beavers, we're talking big. Really, did I mention really big beavers? Have you ever seen a rodent 6 or 7 feet long? A capybara would be about the closest. Those exist in South America. Giant beavers are among the largest rodents that have ever lived. They made their home here alongside the ancestors of today's beavers. Their tails were probably long, but may not have been flat like tails of the beavers we know. Giant beavers went extinct near the end of the Pleistocene epoch, which ended about 11,000 years ago. Unlike giant beavers and the woolly mammoths, the musk ox was an Ice Age survivor. Ancient musk oxen migrated from Asia to what is now Alaska between 200,000 and 90,000 years ago, when it was much colder. During warmer periods, they became separated from their Asian cousins. Later, they spread as far south as Kansas. Musk oxen are among the few large North American mammals that survived the Pleistocene epoch. They escaped extinction by finding ice-free refuges far from predators, including humans. How do we know that these animals lived here? Mammoths, mastodons, giant beavers, they're all gone, but they left clear traces. Teeth, bone, resist decay, sometimes becoming fossils. These remains illuminate Minnesota's vanished wildlife, and one need not dig deep to find them. Construction crews and farmers routinely unearth important fossils. Fossils preserve this record of Pleistocene populations, documenting extraordinary animals that have long gone extinct. Thanks for coming with us today to explore the Ice Age megafauna and flora exhibit at the Bell Museum. If you like this video, please like and subscribe below. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks a lot and have a sweet day.